Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to a new review of just a standalone movie that never got a sequel, and there's no real certain special occasion for it. I just now realized it's been a very long time since I've just reviewed a standalone movie completely out of nowhere for no reason other than I just wanted to talk about it. Matter of fact, just out of curiosity, what was my last just full on standalone review that I did? Because everything's either been a franchise or a part of a genre. Oh, well, no, Candyman is kind of a franchise. I guess American Werewolf, Fright Night, and The Blob kind of count. I guess Commando. That was probably my last just solo. This didn't get a sequel. This didn't get become part of a franchise. This is just a totally random, out of nowhere solo review. But still, it's been a while. And yeah, there's really no occasion for this movie other than this is a movie that I've purchased and I've watched, and I wanted to talk about it. Today, I will be talking about the 2013. How is this movie described? Comedy horror. No, I wouldn't really say it's a horror movie. Like this supernatural comedy thriller movie. Horns, directed by Alexandra Aja and starring Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame. Yes, indeed. So Horns is an interesting movie for me because now, okay, I have said before I am a Harry Potter fan. I am a pretty big. I've read most of them. There's only one of the Harry Potter books I never finished, but I've seen all the movies. I own all the movies. But I haven't really paid attention to Daniel Radcliffe's post Harry Potter career for the most part. I know of this movie, obviously. Matter of fact, I think this was his first post Harry Potter movie that he did. Okay, 2011 was the final Harry Potter film. Okay, no, that was The Woman in Black, along with Kill Your Darlings and this movie, which came out in 2013. Um, so I did see the trailer for Horns. Or wait. Oh, it came out in 2014, but still, I remember seeing the trailer for Horns once in my movie making class of all things, and thinking that looks kind of interesting. And I was a little bit more intrigued when I saw that the movie was R-rated. And I thought that was, oh, wow, really? Daniel Radcliffe is going to do an R-rated movie? And I saw that the movie was rated R for sexual content, some graphic nudity, disturbing violence, including a sexual assault, language, and drug use. So that got me really intrigued. I was like, huh, this looks like it could work. But I never got around to seeing the movie, partially just because I kind of forgot about it. I saw the trailer once, and that was it. I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't really see a DVD release. I just kind of forgot about it. But it wasn't until I think it was around 2016 when my brother I texted my brother one morning to see if he'd be up for hanging out. I texted him saying, "Hey, what you doing?" And he texted me back saying, I just got done watching the movie Horns for the fourth time this morning. So I was like, wait, is that movie with Daniel Radcliffe where he grows horns out of his head? He says, yep, at the very end, he becomes a demon. Like, oh, okay. So then I looked up the movie because I just completely forgot about it, and so I looked up horns and did some research on the movie, and I read the plot, and it even more so sounded really interesting. But still, again, I never got around to seeing it until late 2019. Me and Meadow decided to watch it together on Netflix because we were frequenting Netflix looking for something to watch, and I saw that Horns was on there, and I remembered my brother telling me about it, and I convinced her, hey, let's check this movie out. It's a movie where Harry Potter grows horns, and he goes on a mission to avenge his girlfriend's death. So we were both down. We watched the movie, and I was very impressed. I really dug the shit out of this movie. I thought it was a very pleasantly surprising film. I really enjoyed the movie's story. I enjoyed Daniel Radcliffe's performance, and just overall, I thought it was a damn fine, well-made movie. I was very impressed. And ever since, I wouldn't quite place Horns as one of my all-time favorite movies. There's one thing about this movie that prevents me from doing that, but still, this movie has been a pretty uh, recurring rewatch in my life. There's just something about this movie that always has me coming back to it for more, and every time I'm just as satisfied. I think this is a damn fine, very entertaining, very well made, and extremely underrated movie. I don't really see that many people talking about this movie, especially for Daniel Radcliffe fans. They're just like Harry Potter, or well, sometimes there's The Woman in Black, and then there's sometimes also Guns Akimbo, which came out recently. But this one amongst Daniel Radcliffe's filmography just kind of seems to be swept under the rug, and I don't really see why. Amongst Alexandra Aja fans, this film is fairly brought up, but not because of Daniel Radcliffe. And for those who don't know, Alexandre Aja is a French film director best known for his work in the horror genre. Starting in, he rose to international stardom in 2003 with his movie known as High Tension. But he also directed the 2006 remake of The Hills Have Eyes. The 2008, I think it's a remake. Or no, think it's just its own thing. But Mirrors from 2008, and Piranha 3D, the 2010 loose remake of the original Piranha, as well as this film, and Crawl from 2019, a natural disaster horror film. Actually, a pretty damn good movie. Oh no, it is a remake. Mirrors is a remake. It's a remake of a Korean horror film called Into the Mirror. Um, what else has he done? Oh, he produced that. Never mind. No, that's about it. But yeah, Alexandre Aja, he's a filmmaker that thus far, everything that he's done, I have liked. My favorite of which being the 2006 remake of The Hills Have Eyes. I think that is an example of where a movie is definitively better than its original. Horror and metal, I hope you agree. No, probably not. But whatever. But yeah, Horns is a kick-ass movie in my opinion. And why am I reviewing this? Simply just because I've been watching this movie a lot. I had to buy this because I fell victim to something that I preach a lot about for streaming services because I was feeling the urge to rewatch Horns again. And I went to go on Netflix, and lo and behold, it wasn't there. So I bought this, and thankfully, it was dirt cheap. It was like $7. And I rewatched this movie, and I just felt the urge to, you know what? I think I want to talk about this in a video. So here we are. So, Horns. Um, Based on a novel of the same name by Joe Hill, which I have not read. I'd like to though because it sounds like it's a pretty good book. Apparently, um, it's a it's fairly different from its source material, but it's similar enough that you can obviously tell that this is the same thing. Um, the plot goes Ignatius Ig Parrish, played by Daniel Radcliffe, is the prime suspect when his girlfriend Marin is raped and murdered. Marin being played by Juno Temple. Hmm. Despite his declarations of innocence, he is shunned by his community. He visits his parents and brother Terry to hide from the press. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor. After a vigil led by Marin's father, played by, I never remember this guy's name. David Morse, Brutal from The Green Mile. Okay. After a vigil being led by Marin's father, who believes Ig to be guilty, Ig gets drunk and urinates on Marin's memorial and wakes up with a pair of horns protruding from his head. Ig's horns have special powers that force people to tell him their deepest secrets and desires. And at Ig's bidding, they act upon them. Couple examples: when he wakes up with the horns, his friend with benefits, Glenna, reveals her desire to become really fat in order to live up to her um, reputation perceived by the community as being trash. And she says, I just need to know if I can eat this box. So he says, yeah, go ahead, pick out. So she literally starts picking out. Um, Another example is when he goes to well, while seeing his doctor about getting the horns removed, before this happens, he influences the receptionist to tell a mother that her screaming child needs to be dragged the fuck out of the waiting room. Oh my God, this little girl literally screams like a busted transmission. Whew. But Ig, under anesthesia, dreams of his childhood when he first met Marin. A young Ig and his friends play with cherry bombs, and Ig risks a dangerous dare to win a cherry bomb and nearly drowns, but is saved by Lee, his childhood friend, whom is now a lawyer, his lawyer, in fact. He trades the cherry bomb with Lee in exchange for fixing Marin's broken necklace. Lee loses two fingers when the cherry bomb goes off in his hand accidentally, and Ig and Marin bond over the fixed necklace and fall in love, frequenting a treehouse in the woods together. Ig visits his parents, and under the horn's power, his mother reveals she doesn't want him as her son and asks him to leave. His father tells him he is worthless without Marin, and his friend helps him burn down the lab where DNA tests were being conducted to clear Ig's name. As Ig heads to a bar in the parking lot, he goads the reporters that surround him constantly into a brawl, and probably the funniest scene in the whole movie. He attempts to find evidence proving that he didn't kill Marin from the people in the bar. After several people confess their deepest and darkest secrets, including, sadly, one dude who drops trowel and shows everybody his dick that nobody wants to see, the owner slash bartender burns down the building to collect the insurance money. But before this, from one confession, Ig learns a new witness is in this case, being a waitress at the diner where Marin broke up with him the night she died. Ig finds her and discovers she has been fabricating her stories in order to become famous. When Ig talks to Terry, he learns that Terry drove Marin from the diner the night that she died. When he touches Terry, Ig sees what happens that night in another ability revealed that he's able to see someone's memories by touching them physically. Marin left the car en route to her home and ran to the woods. Terry passed out in the car and woke up the next morning with a bloody rock in his hand smothered in blood, and his shirt smothered in blood too. Finding Marin dead under the treehouse, having her head bashed in. Afraid that he would be implicated, he fled. And infuriated by this, Ig beats the shit out of Terry until he is arrested by Officer Eric Hannity, who is another childhood friend. The next morning, Ig is released from jail with Lee's help, and Ig notices Lee wearing Marin's cross necklace and questions him about it. Lee insists there are things about him and Marin that Ig never knew. Later that night, with Ig trying to tear the horns out of his head, he realizes that snakes are following him wherever he goes, and he uses them to exact vengeance against the waitress. Additionally, he gets Eric to act on his feelings for his police partner, who is gay, in a really kind of cringy scene, and forces Terry to overdose on drugs, causing Terry to be tormented by memories of Marin's death. Ig meets Lee by the docks and pulls off Marin's necklace. Ig realizes Lee was unable to see Ig's horns because he was wearing Marin's cross necklace. Exposed to the horns, Lee falls under their influence, admitting that he killed Marin. What a twist. In flashbacks, Lee was also in love with Marin and was deeply jealous of Ig throughout their childhood. Lee followed Marin into the woods, thinking that Marin had been sending him signals for a long time and that she had broken up with Ig to be with him. When Marin insists that she loves Ig more than anyone in the world, Lee raped her in a jealous rage and killed her with a rock, stole her necklace, and planted the bloody rock on Terry. In the ensuing confrontation, Lee overpowers him and lights him on fire with his car, causing Ig to drive into the bay. Lee claims that Ig confessed to the crime and committed suicide. The horns allow Ig to survive, however, but horribly burned and disfigured. Marin's father, who now believes Ig is innocent, gives Ig the a little late, don't you think? Gives Ig the key to Marin's lockbox. When Ig puts on Marin's cross, his body is restored and his horns disappear. In the box, he finds a note from Marin explaining that she knew he was going to propose, but she was dying from cancer and didn't want him to suffer, so she pushed him away under the pretense of loving someone else, not wanting to have him watch her die and suffer the same fate that her dad did. It's explained earlier in the movie that Marin's mother also died of cancer, and she finds out that the cancer that she had is genetic, and she ended up with the same kind of cancer. So because her father was torn to pieces watching his wife die, Marin did not want Ig to follow in her dad's footsteps, which kind of I kind of have mixed opinions on. Ig confronts Lee, who does not remember their earlier fight, and leads him into the woods where Marin was killed. Eric and Terry arrive to arrest Lee. Lee confesses to the murder, but then gleefully kills Eric and injures Terry, shooting him in the leg with a shotgun. Ig tears off the necklace, sprouting a pair of wings and bursting into flame, transforming into a demonic monster. Despite Lee mortally wounding him, Ig impales Lee on one of his horns and telepathically forces a snake down Lee's throat, killing him in a ironic symbolic fate. Saying that his vengeance was all-consuming, Ig dies from his injuries, and his smoldering corpse turns to hardened ash, and he appears to be reunited with Marin in the afterlife. That ending. Hold on one sec. I'm adding one more pro. So, what do I think of this story? Well, it's actually my pro number one. So I'll just talk about it. I really like this movie's story. It's definitely original. Um, I can't really think of any other movie out there that well, sure, it kind of is a typical like clear my name, falsely accused, revenge type movie, but the manner that it's executed, it feels very original, and it's intriguing, it's fascinating, it's dark, but it's also it has a good like dark fantasy element to it. It also has moments when it's funny, and excuse me, it's entertaining, and it's very, not to sound perverted, it's kind of sexually charged, and it's also violent and dark and fucked up in a good way. Like this movie has balls. I'll be saying that a couple times, but I just really like this movie's story. It's how it's executed. It feels so unique and it feels so original. You just can't help but like it. So that's pro number one. But pro number two is Ignatius Parrish himself. I'll just call him Ig. Ig himself. Daniel Radcliffe does a fantastic job playing this character. Daniel said behind the scenes, it's a very, very different type of part than anything I've ever done, and adding that the role was deeply emotional and also incredibly outrageous in some ways. Yeah, it definitely is. He plays him very, very, very well, in my opinion. Ig himself, you definitely feel a lot of sympathy for this guy because I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that have been unfortunately falsely accused of crimes. Like there's a lot of unfortunate false rape victims out there, and even some false murder victims out there. And he does a great job of showing his frustration and his anger, and there is sadness there, but it's just mostly Ig is very bitter, because he feels like, I mean, literally, his life is turned completely upside down. He breaks up with the love of his life, finds out that she dies right after that happens, and then proceeds to have everyone whom he's known, except for one or two people, his entire life, just seemingly out of nowhere, just turn on him. and just shun him and be completely convinced that he is guilty of this heinous act. Everybody is just going around saying, "You killed her. You killed her. You should just admit to it. You killed her. You raped her. You're a piece of shit. You killed this wonderful woman." And you get swept up in his frustration, and you, along with Ig, get very irritated and angry at everyone in the movie who is just completely convinced that he did this act. And here's Ig saying left and right, "I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I did nothing of the sort. Why don't any of you motherfuckers believe me?" The only two people that do believe him is his brother, Terry, and his friend with benefits, Glenna. Those are the only two allies that he has throughout the film. But everybody else, left and right, is just completely convinced of his guilt. You get very quickly very attached to Ig throughout this movie. As I said, he's very angry and very sad and bitter, and Daniel Radcliffe does a very, very good job playing this character. He's very sympathetic, and he's very likable. At least for me, I think he's very likable because you're obviously right off the bat convinced that he is innocent, and you want him to have his name cleared, and you want to see him succeed. I think it's great. Pro number 3 is the rest of the cast itself. I'm not really going to talk about, I'll just talk about real quick the rest of the characters. We have Max Mingela, I think that's how you pronounce his name, as Lee Tourneau, Ig's childhood best friend and now lawyer and also betrayer. The only other movie that I've seen him in, he was the main bad guy in Spiral, the Book of Saw. He's the fake Jigsaw killer. At first, he comes off as being a supportive and likable character, but as soon as the switch is flipped and it's revealed that Lee is actually the one who killed Marin, he becomes a very unlikable, but in kind of a good way. Like you don't see the twist coming, which is also very good. And when it's revealed, it's like a good shocking moment. And he's a totally despicable, backstabbing slime bag piece of shit. And watching him get the shit, well, he doesn't really get the shit kicked out of him, but watching his death at the end of the movie is very cathartic, and it's very well earned. We have Joe Anderson as Terry Parrish, Ig's brother. He's not bad. You definitely buy that Ig and Terry have a close brotherly bond. And you also get swept up in Ig's anger when he finds out that Terry was one of the last to see Marin alive, whom he did not know about until an hour before he dies. Or not an hour, but like 10 hours before he dies. He's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why didn't you say anything when I was arrested? I was scared. I was a pussy." And you get wrapped up in Ig's anger. But he redeems himself, that he survives his OD, and he tells Eric, I'll get to him in a minute. He redeems himself when he tells Eric, the police officer, about what happened. So when they show up at the treehouse in order to try to arrest Lee, you then feel a lot of sympathy for Terry too, because he's the only one who realizes the error of his ways, and he comes to his brother's aid, and ultimately he's there for him when his brother dies. So Terry redeems himself by the end. I do feel it's a little too late, but more on the ending later. We have Juno Temple as Marin Williams. We don't know that much about her because she is dead for a good chunk of the movie, but in flashbacks, it's very obvious that Juno and Ig are very, very, very close. And they love each other to absolute death, no pun intended. And she does come off as being a very sweet and caring and supportive woman. And you kind of retroactively feel like you do feel sympathy for her, and that gives you even more sympathy for Ig, because you see how close these two are, and you see how these two obviously love each other. You feel even worse for Ig that he lost the love of his life. But yeah, and Juno does a good job playing her. Um, Not gonna say that much else about the rest of the cast, except for yeah, David Morse does a good job. He only has a couple scenes as Marin's dad, but he's good. Ow, that hurt. Then we have Michael Adam Waite, the last character that I'll talk about, as Eric Kennedy, Ig's gay friend, who is now a cop. Now, oh, that would have been interesting. Shia LaBeouf was originally set to play Ig, but was later replaced with Radcliffe. That would have been interesting. Now, me saying earlier that when Eric is um, influenced by Daniel to act upon his gay feelings, I wasn't saying that in a like a homophobic term. I support gay rights, but why that scene is so cringy is, at least for me, Eric spends a very good chunk of this movie as a completely unlikable douchebag, and like the rest of the community, is completely convinced that Ig committed this horrible act. And he even admits earlier that he wishes he could plant some evidence on Ig just to put him away for life. And then um his partner says, "Yeah, beat him to death, Eric. I'm gonna picture the two of you naked so I can give me something to whack off to tonight." Yeah, I like that. I like thinking about you two naked too, Sturts. And and then watching those two start eating each other's face and be just these creepy, evil gay guys, it's just it's a little cringy. It's kind of funny too, because well, I'll talk about that a little later when I talk about this movie's humor. But thankfully, like Terry, Eric redeems himself by the end too by showing up toting a shotgun, saying, "Lee told me about everything, and if you say that Ig is dead and now here he is right here alive, I'm kind of gonna question anything else that you've told me in the past. So what the hell's going on here?" That is short lived though, because Lee kills him by literally blowing his head off with a shotgun about like 5 minutes later. But you do get the sense that Eric finally saw through this web of bullshit that Lee had spun, and now he's like, okay, what the hell's going on here now? So that's good. Eric, in the end, is it comes out kind of likable. Again, though, it's a little too late because he spends a good chunk of the rest of the movie being an unlikable dick. Excuse me. But yeah, the rest of the cast is really good. Everybody is well cast. Everybody plays their characters well. Their dialogue's good. Their acting is good. There's really not a bad performance here. Pro number 3 is the music. Ig is a radio DJ in this movie, and he plays a lot of records and music throughout the movie. The original score itself was done by Robin. Oh, he's Rob. He did the music for the remake of Maniac. He's a French pop slash rock musician, singer, songwriter, and producer, and film score composer. He definitely has his. It's very like neo tech noir synth scores. But his music is really, really good from the stuff that I've heard. And his music for this movie is also pretty damn good. Yeah, he also did the music for Maniac. There's not much to say about it. The music, though, just is good. It definitely sounds like Robin Kudert music, or Rob, as he likes to go by. But the soundtrack to this movie is also very, very good. There's a lot of pop and rock songs that are used throughout the film's score. There's a fair bit of David Bowie music, which my mom would appreciate because she's a big David Bowie fan. But my favorite song that they use in this movie is Marilyn Manson's Personal Jesus. So I'll talk about that in just a minute, but I just will say the music for this movie is very good. It definitely sounds like another Alexandra Aja and Rob a collaboration, but yeah, the music's good. It has a like supernatural mystical tone to it while also being kind of sad and tragic, but it has its uplifting moments too. Overall, the music is good and the soundtrack's great too. Alexandra Aja also knows how to pick good songs for his soundtracks. I already talked about the story, so I'll talk about this next. Is the this movie? This movie's got a pretty sick sense of humor. There's moments in this movie where there's situations that normally you would not laugh at, but they're presented here in a surprisingly funny way. And like this movie isn't like split your sides open funny, but there are good moments where you'll get a good laugh. Let me try to think. Well, there's the first one is when Ig goes under for anesthesia and he wakes up, he finds a surgical saw still embedded in one of his horns. Then he looks over and he sees the doctor and nurse fucking on a chair right next to him. And it goes, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And the doctor, under the horn's influences, says, "Well, we're gonna do the surgery, but I kind of got distracted here. We asked if we could have sex instead, and you said it was okay. How the hell could I have said that? I was under anesthesia." Well, you sort of just nodded your head, so we just went ahead and started fucking. Um, it's funny. What's another one? There's another one where in the flashback scene when all the kids are playing with cherry bombs, Eric stuffs a raw chicken full of 2 cherry bombs. It fizzles out, and they think that it's a dud. So then Eric starts walking toward it, and then it explodes, and he gets pelted in the face with splattery raw chicken. It's funny. um, let's see, what's another one? I might also talk about this. The funniest scene in the whole movie is the scene when Ig what's the word they use? When he goads all the reporters that surround him day and night into a brawl. So he gets out of his car, he starts walking towards the bar, and the reporters surround him. He turns around and just says, "Can you guys just leave me alone, for Christ's sake?" And then all the reporters saying, "Come on, just admit that you killed her. It'll be a good story for me to get out of shitty local news." I got an idea. How about all you guys beat the shit out of each other, and whoever wins gets an exclusive interview with me? And then Marilyn Manson's Personal Jesus starts playing, and this dude right next to him immediately turns around and just whams on this chick right next to him. And all the reporters just start beating the living fuck out of each other. And Ig is so shocked by this. I feel like that might have been a moment where Daniel Radcliffe was not expecting it because the look on his face, it's one of just like genuine like surprise, like funny surprise. He goes, and he watches them beat the crap out of each other for a minute. Then he turns around with a shit-eating grin on his face, and it's funny. It's fucking hysterical. That moment, me and Neto just both started dying laughing when we first saw this movie. It was funny. And the last really funny scene in this movie is when um Ig influences Eric and Sturts to act on their feelings for each other. Um the dialogue is kind of cringy for that scene too, but he goes up to him and says, "Don't you guys have better things to do than just follow me around all day? Wouldn't you rather just sit here and suck each other off?" "What makes you say that?" "Well, growing up, Meatbag, because that's his nickname for him, from the raw chicken incident, and Eric is now referred to as Meatbag. You know, Meatbag, I always figured you just had to act tough in order to prove to others that you're not gay." And then he says, "When I was a kid, I used to steal gay porno mags from the liquor store. When my old man caught them, he cracked me with his belt. See, you guys were just raised to," and then Sturt says, "That's why I always want to be partnered with Eric, because I like him too." Well, see, you guys were both raised to believe that it's a sin, but it's just being human, which is true. I do agree with that. And then they start doing gay dirty talk to each other, which is also cringy, and they start sucking each other's face. Um, but when they start revealing their feelings, Ig gives them just this giant shit-eating grin, like, um, the comedy never overstays its welcome, and it never overpowers the rest of the movie. Um, but when it is there, this movie's got like a really fucked up sense of humor, but it's genuinely funny in my opinion. It's this movie's hardcore, very very hardcore. And it's very enjoyable in my opinion. The next pro that I'll talk about is the tone. Pro number 6. The tone for this movie, I think, is pretty good. Um, this could kind of be wrapped along with talking about the movie's story, but how this movie feels, it's a good blend of like it has supernatural elements, it has some gothic elements, because this movie was shot, I believe, in Canada, and you barely see any sunlight throughout this movie. It's very gray. There's a lot of overcast and like autumn wet weather. And it feels very gothic, and it feels kind of drab and dreary at times. Um, but it has its funny moments, and it has its. I wouldn't really call this movie a horror film, but there are a couple pretty horrific scenes to watch. Namely, the scene when Lee forces himself on Marin, which is a pretty difficult scene to watch. It's one of only maybe 2 scenes in this movie that I kind of skip. Um, Thankfully, unlike in Rob Zombie's Halloween, it's not very long, so you can tough yourself through it. But then you watch Lee Killer, which is also pretty hard to watch. But um, I just really like. Oh, this is what I was gonna say earlier. Is one thing I like about this movie's tone is this movie is very dark in a good way. It's very dark. It's very ballsy because it shows some things that a mainstream movie would not have the balls to show. And this movie is also pretty fucked up, but in a good way. And I think that is one thing that's always it kind of like how Trev feels about Alien 3. It's a little difficult to really put into words how this movie makes me feel. I just kind of feel it. But the tone of this movie is very dark and ballsy and fucked up. And in a good way, in a ballsy way, and in like a really cathartic, pleasant way. Like, wow, the fact that you had balls enough to show the kind of shit that this movie shows is very respectable and very commendable. Um, so yeah, I like this movie's tone. Pro number 7, I think. No, this will be pro number 7. Pro number 7 is the mystery for this movie. This is not much to say about this, but I do like the mystery aspects of this movie because it is um it's a clear my name falsely accused type film, and watching um Ig slowly uncover the evidence and clear his name throughout the movie that proves that he didn't do what he's accused of. It's really intriguing, it's very engaging, and it definitely is the best way that it's a who done it mystery. And the best thing that you can do in a who done it type mystery is keep the audience guessing. And this movie does a really good job of showing that. And when the twist is revealed, that being um oh, the guy that you thought was Ig's best friend actually was the one who murdered Marin and backstabbed his best friend. Some may see it coming. I didn't the first time that I saw this. I was taken completely by surprise. I would have thought that it would have been either um, like a jealous ex-boyfriend of Marin's, or maybe Ig's brother, but I did not see it being Lee being revealed as the twist. So that was a pleasant surprise. Uh, pro number, I'll talk about these two at the same time. Pro number 8 and 9. Pro number 8 is this movie is violent. And pro number 9 is that this movie has very good special effects. There's not a whole lot of special effects in this movie. Obviously, Ig's horns are are a special effect, and they're very convincing. They actually look like they're growing out of his head. They're not super big horns. They look kind of like goat horns, and they sprout from one side of Ig's head, and they curve backwards. But they're definitely noticeable, but they're not super big. But they look like real horns growing out of Daniel Radcliffe's head. Good effect on there. Um, when Ig is burned and disfigured after Lee tries to kill him, the effect is very, 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 very good. I do wonder who did the effects. Hang on. Nah, this isn't being helpful, really. Is it these guys? I would have thought it'd be K and B because they do every fucking other movie out there. Oh, nope, that's not them. I don't know. I don't know who did the effects for this movie. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was K and B. But the effect on Daniel when he's all burned and fucked up and disfigured, his skin is red and charred and burnt. His horns grew a little bit bigger, and like half of his face is all fucked up and nasty looking. His eye is milked over and cloudy. His skin is burnt and charred. His clothes are ragged and torn. He looks like he was set on fire, and the effect is effective. And looks really really solid. And when Daniel practically is turned into a demonic monster at the end of the movie, the design is definitely good. He's mostly like completely burnt and charred. And he has, instead of the small goat stub horns, he grows these like giant bull horns that protrude out of his head. Um, and that's how he's able to kill Lee. He impales him on one of his horns. Um, but the design of Ig's demon form is certainly good. Oh, and probably the best effect in this movie is when Eric is killed. They literally blow Eric's head off, and it's bloody, it's visceral, it's gnarly, and it's very splattery and goopy, which is a really good effect. Kind of reminds me of in the scene in the movie Upgrade when a dude gets his head blown off by a handgun. His head just literally blows to pieces. It's great. The only effect in this movie that is a little iffy is the digital effects. There's not that many digital effects, um, but there are some, and they kind of range from being competent for the film's budget, which I don't know what it was. It's not listed here. It's just shown that its box office was 3.9 million. Maybe I can look this up too. Or 2014, I should say. It's that this isn't telling me either. That sucks. I'd imagine this movie costs maybe five, because Daniel Radcliffe's the biggest actor they have in this movie. Maybe 5 or 6 or 7 million dollars. It's not a super expensive movie. So I give the CG effects a little bit of a pass for how they look in this movie, but there's times where the CG looks competent, and then there's a couple moments where it just looks a little cartoony. Probably the most cartoony is when Ig is set on fire in his car. When a match hits him, when Lee covers him in gasoline, it's pretty obvious that there was like digital fire that spews all over him. So that's probably the weakest effect in this film. But overall, the practical special effects in this movie are pretty solid. And the violence in this movie is also, it's very cathartic. It's very, oh, and another effect too. Now, this is the weakest effect. When the waitress, played by Heather Graham from Austin Powers and The Spy Who Shagged Me, when she is attacked by Ig and his snakes, she's all going about the movie saying, I want to get famous and make myself look extra pretty and give my tits an uplifting. He influences the snakes to bite her all over her body. So then by the time the attack is over, she's got bleeding snake bites all over her face, arms, and neck, and she's bleeding profusely all over the place. And she's going to have really nasty scars. And that's another really cathartic scene to watch Ig get his revenge on such a lying piece of shit. He says to her, "See, vanity has a price, and this means that it'll be a long time before you can even try to look pretty again. Something along those lines. Basically saying vanity does not pay at all. That's very satisfying to watch. Shit. But yeah, the violence in this movie is very cathartic. When the waitress gets bitten by snakes, there's a lot of blood. When Eric gets his head blown off, it's goopy and visceral and slimy. When Terry gets his knee shot out by a shotgun, it's a nasty, giant, exploding, bloody squib out of his knee. The movie is also kind of sexually violent too, and that can be pretty off-putting to a lot of viewers, i.e. the rape scene. I can kind of do without that too, but like the physical violence in this movie, it's very, very cathartic. And when Ig kills Lee, it's really a gnarly scene. He charges forward and impales Lee like fully through the abdomen on one of his horns, then lifts him off his horn and tosses him to a tree, and he smacks against the tree. And then he compels a few pythons to wrap themselves around Lee, and then one more snake goes into his stab wound, goes out the back of him, and then coils around and forces itself down Lee's throat all the way into his stomach, and it starts squirming around inside of his guts. It's gnarly as fuck, and it's a very good kill. A very fitting violent end to make up for the fucked up violent end that he gave Marin to a fucked up violent character. So, with all of these really good things to say about horns, do I have any cons? Well, before I get to it, I do have one question, but I have only one con. But the question is, where do the horns come from? The movie never really gives you a concrete answer on where the horns come from. It implies that it's obviously some kind of divine intervention, but we don't still really know where the horns come from. There are some theories out there, of course. There's one that states that Ig is being punished by God for desecrating Marin's memorial when he pissed all over it. There's one that states that he's cursed by a demon or the devil himself. There's another one that suggests that maybe what's happening to Ig is like a collaboration between both God and Satan in order to turn him into a punisher. There's a fourth one, when this is the one that I subscribe to. It's the fact that because it is implied throughout the movie, at least as far as I'm concerned, that God turned a blind eye for Marin, and Ig renounces his faith in God. So Satan himself comes in and basically says, if God is not going to help you look for justice, then I will step in and help you get justice for Marin's death. So here's a little piece of my power in order for you to get revenge on Marin. But that's kind of the beauty of it. That's also part of the mystery aspect to this movie too, is that you don't really know. You never really know for sure where the horns come from. But similar to John Carpenter's The Thing, you can take the movie at face value, and you could just say he's being cursed because he desecrated Marin's memorial, which is what Meadow believes. She believes he's cursed. I believe that Satan himself stepped in order to help Ig become a punisher and avenge Marin's death. in the absence of God's influence. That's what I subscribe to. But again, the movie doesn't really give a concrete answer. It's up to your interpretation, and anyone can work. Um, and that's really good. That's not a con or even a pro or anything, but that is an added good element to this movie, in my opinion. But that is a giant question that this movie asks: where do the horns come from? It's up to you. Who knows? My sole con, the only thing about this movie that I dislike is the ending. I don't like this movie. Specifically, I don't like that Ig dies. Don't like it at all. I see what they were going for because the movie definitely strongly implies that after he dies, he goes to the afterlife to be with Marin for all eternity, just at their lovey-dovey, bright, sunshiny spot at the treehouse, just make love for all eternity. I see what they're going for with that, but for me, though, well, for one thing, it doesn't help that as soon as Ig transforms into his demon form, uh, Lee shoots him 3 times with a shotgun and stabs him with a pitchfork 3 or 4 times, mortally wounding him, and only after that does Ig charge forward and kill Lee. Ig doesn't even try to fight back after he's shot 3 times and stabbed 3 times. It's kind of lame. And it feels kind of forced to me. But also, just him dying, because you grow so attached to him and you want to see him clear his name and succeed in proving his innocence, and he does, only just for him to die minutes afterwards. It just kind of feels like a spit in the face. And to me, just never sat well with me. I would have much preferred that they would have done like a more bittersweet ending. Is that after I would have preferred the ending to go like this. After Ig kills Lee, he puts the cross back on and it transforms him back to a human, but he still has the horns from the rest of the movie protruding out of his head, and he's cursed to live like that throughout the rest of his life. And also because there's a dead police officer and also a dead lawyer, it looks still really bad for Ig. So Ig realizes he has to leave his brother behind, and he has to leave his home behind, and he has to just go and start a new life elsewhere. But the sweetness comes in when he finally does realize, I avenged Marin's death. I cleared my name of killing her, but I still have to leave. But at least I avenged her death. I would have much strongly preferred they do that as the film's ending, but just having him die feels anticlimactic, forced, and just a bit too much of a dour end to end on, or a dour note to end on. That's the only problem. I hate this movie's ending. Every time it rolls around, I kind of just check out. That's the last 5 minutes or so of this movie is where it loses me. And that sucks too, because had this movie had a better ending, I would consider this to be one of my favorite movies of all time. But it's just that ending, man. It sucks. It sucks so hard. But with all that being said, my final thoughts on Horns. I love this movie. It's very unique. It's very entertaining. It's very well made. It's very ballsy, and it's just overall a very underrated, very unsung film. Which is why I'll be giving it a very, very solid 9 out of 10. It's literally just the ending that keeps me from giving it a perfect 10. I want to so badly, but it sucks, man. The ending just sucks. And so yeah, I highly recommend Horns. Go out and check it out. It's dirt cheap on Amazon, or you can just go on Pluto TV and watch it, but with ads, sadly. But yeah, that was Horns. I highly recommend it. So post your comments down below and let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. Look forward to next time, and where I'm talking about a web of lies that's spun throughout this movie to try to save Lee's ass. We'll be talking about a different set of webs the next time on my channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. And remember, the next time that you find some horns growing out of your head, avoid your parents. And I will see you guys in the next video.